10-4, we respond at 639 Market at the Sheraton Palace, 487 report. There's a 909 in the lobby, the name is Lawson.
31, we are responding. 10-1. At 430 Court Avenue, Apartment 3, Cross Street, Andover. This is a two-door, white Ford.
Good evening. I'm Tomas Rahman. What do any of us know of the police and the job they've chosen to do? We all have impressions gleaned from our own experiences with them, but most of our perceptions of police work comes from television programs and films. In tonight's program, we're going to speak with 3 police officers and their spouses and experience with them a small portion of their lives. Jim Coleman is an Oakland policeman with 15 years on the force, married, with 2 children.
There's not a policeman, I think, that's honest around in any community, any size, that won't tell you that there is a psychological I don't know really the word, but
Stress?
it definitely builds to stress, but the officer that works day to day in a patrol function where there's contact and violent calls day to day definitely has a psychological condition due to the danger. The danger of the random ambush. And, you know, in the 60s and 70s, we were having ambushes just out of nowhere. An officer was ambushed for no reason. The dangers of responding to burglar alarms and robbery alarms, we all go to at least one a day. Mm-hmm. There's a tremendous danger involved there, especially on the robberies. The narcotic suspects that we handle are tremendously dangerous.
Larry Murdoch and Leroy Lindo are San Francisco policemen with 5 years on the force and working out of Mission Station. Both are married, neither have children.
When you put on a uniform, strap on the gun, it definitely changes you because it gives you a great deal of power. Great deal of power. We have a great deal of discretion in our job. And it's the type of job where we make our own decisions in most cases, and we don't have to consult with anyone else. And we can make quite a few decisions concerning people's lives that will have a lasting effect on them.
How does that seems like an awesome responsibility.
Yes,
How do you deal with it?
It is an awesome responsibility, but I feel that at the time I took the job, I felt I was prepared to take on the responsibility that the job has.
I still tend to look at certain things suspiciously, but it's just the nature of the job. I can ride down the street and see somebody doing something, and I'll just stop for a minute and check out their activities, and if it satisfies that curiosity that I have, I'll continue wherever I'm going.
That's something different than you used to do when you weren't a policeman.
Sure, yeah, it was very different because back in 1977 or prior to 1977, I can't remember a time when I even did anything like that or even saw anything that was criminal and wanted to take action or just stop to recognize the activity.
The police know the image many people have of police work and feel much of it is inaccurate.
I feel most people will never understand police because the only image they get of the police is from what television portrays. And television's account of police is totally inaccurate.
In what way?
The way they portray police. When you see a police show, in the beginning, a crime's committed. By the end of the hour, they've arrested the person. Everything's fine, and then they either go back out on the street or they go home or they have a few laughs, and then that's the end of the show. But it doesn't work that way in real life.
Treat everybody the same.
There are many occasions when at the beginning of our watch we come to work, somebody commits a crime, we never hear from them again. And that's just the way some things are. Some people commit crimes and they don't get caught. Also, the other image that television portrays of police is the Adam 12 image, the 2 perfect cops. Every time they get out of the car, they got their hat, their tag book, their stick, and they look perfect. They don't wear mustaches, don't have sideburns. Every hair is in place, and they very seldom raise their voices. They don't holler at people. Everything's yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, and all this kind of stuff. Then you got the Joe Friday type image, just the facts, ma'am. You got Pepper on Policewoman. You got super female cop, right? Wrong. Got Charlie's Angels. You had just a whole load of police shows, the Rookies. which had to be one of the most violent police shows that was ever on because they killed somebody every week. The public views us as, I think, being inhuman. They don't see us coming home from work at night and laying down, going to sleep, maybe sitting up watching a good show on television and laughing at the same things they'll laugh at. They don't see us as putting our pants on one leg at a time or bending over to tie our shoes. They don't see us as going to the bathroom. They don't see us as eating or anything like that that so-called regular people do. I don't think they see us as doing that.
How do you feel when somebody you've arrested that has a lot of priors ends up back on the street again through plea bargaining or inadmissible evidence?
As far as the criminal justice system is concerned, we as police officers on the street really can't let it get the best of us. I mean, we have responsibilities out on the street. We arrest them, we write the reports, we wait to be subpoenaed to court, and we'll go and testify, and depending upon whether they plea bargain or it goes to a jury trial, whatever the outcome is, we can't concern ourselves with it. We have to keep in mind that we did what was expected of us, and from that point on, it's out of our hands. Because once we start worrying about why this guy got off on this and why he got out on that and how come this didn't happen, it starts to play with you and your performance out on the street because you begin to feel that your job is worthless and you're just going through the motions, coming in, putting on the uniform, putting in your 8 hours and leaving, and that's not what the job is about.
The way we see it, when we arrest someone, they're guilty. Otherwise, we wouldn't have arrested them. We just don't go pick up people that haven't committed crimes. I wouldn't come and just grab you off the street for no reason and put you in jail, say you just robbed this store. We get information, and on the information we receive after a crime has been committed, we search for the suspects, and on occasion, a lot of occasions, we find the suspects. And we get these suspects identified by other victims or witnesses, then we send them to jail. But then when they get downtown, something happens. From the time the crime was committed to the time they get downtown, generally is the time where their lawyers will do their most investigating. And they'll come up with some little technicality, as they say, and you get to court, they tell the judge says, okay, he's out.
The frustrations, of course, start with the police work itself, I think, and then when you are doing the job and you're doing the best you can, and you're trying, as many of our guys just work their hearts out, and then they're frustrated not only with the courts, but in several other smaller areas, it builds, and we see a greater frustration. But some of it's our fault. Not all of it is the courts. We can understand, and I do, that in many cases, you know, the stop or the arrest, or in some cases the search warrant or whatever it may be, had a flaw in it. And then in many cases the officer is beyond his scope of authority or beyond the particular incident he's dealing with. Or the judge or jury just sympathizes with the defendant to some degree for whatever reason, and we lose it on a not guilty verdict.
Well, it does get frustrating, but I'm still going to go out and do my job the way I'm supposed to do it, because I'm paid to protect, serve, enforce the law, arrest lawbreakers and things like that. That's what I'm going to go do, because that's what I took an oath to do when I first got the job. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I'm going to continue to do. Even if after I arrest somebody, they're out on the street 2 days later, that's okay. I did my job at the time it happened. So that's all I'm concerned about. Then I know later on down the road, the same person's going to do something else. We're going to get him again. And supposedly we're making mistakes somewhere along the line when we arrest this person. It's going to get to a point where we're not going to make those mistakes anymore. Then they're going to have to do some time in jail. And they won't get their case thrown out on technicalities. The lawyer won't be able to impeach our testimony or the police report we've written or the evidence that we seized or anything like that. That's what I feel it's going to come to.
24 Troops, Camelot Hotel on Rochette at
430 Portland Avenue.
407 for 3 boy 300, the rear Emporium at 47650. Report it to 3 boy 31, 407 for 3 boy 300.
A police officer may start off his or her job naive as to some of the things they may see or have to do, and how the public may view them. They all react in different ways to this kind of stimulus.
When I first dealt with death, I was sort of numb because I'd never seen a dead person other than on television and maybe at a funeral or two. And the first time I came in contact with a dead person, it was a man who died while home in bed. His wife went out to church that morning and came home and started preparing dinner like she normally had done and hadn't checked on him yet. She had just figured he was going through his normal routine on a Sunday. Get up, go get the paper, come back, lay in the bed and watch television and read the paper. Then when she finally went in and checked on him, she'd finally been dead. He'd probably been dead all day, maybe about 8 hours. And that was my first actual face-to-face contact with him. At the particular time, I did my best to hide whatever feelings I had in order so I could try to help console this woman in this particular time that she had a need. But afterwards, I talked it over with my training officer, and he explained to me that you're just going to have to realize that death is something that happens all the time. It's one of the facts of life, which is death. People are going to die. There is pretty much nothing you can do about it. So you just have to go in, deal with it, and try not to let it affect you too much. Because if you continually let these things affect you, it's going to start having an effect on your work performance.
It's not our place as police officers to let our emotions show simply because it makes us vulnerable to anything that can happen to a police officer out on the street. I'd be foolish to say that certain things don't upset me in this job that I've seen in the past, but while we're dealing with them, we have to remain calm, deal with the situation, and once again, when we get back to the patrol car or in the station or out at dinner, we discuss those things or how they upset you, or or we even question ourselves sometimes, why did this have to happen, or something of that nature, and we discuss it and we get it out of our system so it doesn't cloud our minds when we go on another assignment.
Some areas, yes, we're extra cautious, I would think. There's certain areas of town where we've had a high incident of vandalism to the police cars, and some areas where we actually had sniper attacks or assaults on policemen. I think we're all aware of those and therefore try to be a little more careful.
Some people have very high expectations of us. They think that we're gods and we have the answers to everything, when in fact, we're just like any other human being. We put our pants on one leg at a time, and we're expected to make decisions in a snap second. Whether they're the right decisions or not depends upon how we reacted. And if we make the wrong decision, then the public, the press, and everybody else gets down upon us.
Is there pressure on you to make the right decision?
Pressure would come from the persons who are awaiting the decision, because they want something to happen right now. When we come on the scene, that's why they call us, because they want us to put an end to whatever's going on. They say the police will get here and they'll make everything all right. Most times we can't make everything all right. And when we can't, we try to leave them with some sort of alternative, somewhere that they can go to get the answers that we don't have.
Most of the people rally behind us every time we have a problem. I'm having more and more people wave and say hello and smile and hi, officer, than I ever have.
I'm
really surprised lately.
When I saw
Also, I'd like to mention the merchants and the
we figured they might be
the city officials have been better than we've received in the past.
Okay.
So I feel that we're gaining an overall
Number one.
more of support.
Did you get
I think the public is mixed in how they see the police. On one end, the people see us as helping persons who can come and do things for them, and they feel comfortable seeing the police drive by their house in the evening or in the afternoon. They feel comfortable having the police walk in the streets of their neighborhood. Then, on the other hand, you have certain people in the society that really don't care much for the police. They don't want to see them. They don't want to have any dealings with them. And when they call the police, they expect us to be there yesterday. So nothing we do can satisfy them.
Most people are satisfied with the police services we get, but there's always that small percentage that have nothing but negative things to say about the police, whether it be the amount of time that it took us to get there, the service that we rendered, or if need be, the follow-up investigations that we do. Most people are happy to see us when we're there because they're always calling us when they're in need of service. You know, not very often does somebody just call up and say, hey, I just want to tell you guys you're doing a good job. We don't see that very often.
I think some people have a negative view of police because of the bad publicity we get on occasion. And maybe they've had a bad experience with the police. It might not have been that major. Maybe it was just a traffic citation that they got issued. But the experience was upsetting. Maybe at the time they were upset, so they felt that they had one crisis in their life, which was whatever was upsetting them, and then the police come along and compound their problems. So from then on, they're left with a bad impression of the police, and that might have been the only contact that they'll ever have with the police. So therefore, they keep that bad image.
Most people don't understand the psychological pressures that are involved and the amount of paperwork, day-to-day routine tasks that are involved. You make it out in direct traffic for hours in the rain some night. Nothing you'd want to come home and tell your wife about.
What kind of communication exists between police officers and their spouses? Things seen and done on the job don't necessarily tend to be dinner table conversation.
Do you worry about bringing the job home?
Thank you, Jeremy.
Sometimes I do. I think about it at work sometimes after a major incident or a sad incident. You know, the things that happen to children, things that are touching just about to all of us. Then I do mention it to the wife, and for some good, I feel maybe it helps us in raising our children, you know, and to avoid those kind of things with our family and around our house.
He brings his reports home and he tells me what happens, but he doesn't let it get to him. He might keep a lot more in than I think, but he doesn't let it get to him, no.
So you don't find that he comes home with some stress or...
Not too much, no. Not too much. He's a very strong person. He doesn't let too much bother him. I think you have to be that way to be a policeman. He's not overly emotional, probably like I am. I wouldn't be able to do it.
I haven't really intentionally avoided telling her anything, but occasionally so much has happened. For instance, last night we had several major incidents in one shift, and I just haven't had time to tell her everything that happened.
Okay.
And
This is the only guy I
some
saw
of them
walking.
were
You people had to
sad
go. We had a call.
to a point where it wouldn't do any good to me telling her.
Please.
And then, of course, I'm living with it all, and we go back tonight for same type of thing. So in many cases, you come home with, you know, tragedy after tragedy, and
Hi.
like you said,
Did you
you
call
just
the
have to
police?
live with it. There's no
Who's here? Hi. Did you call us?
remedy or no solution at our end. We just handle it at the scene.
What are some of the feelings you have when he goes out to work?
Well, I think I push a lot of it out of my mind. I try not to worry. I don't really start worrying unless he's late or I hear a flash on TV that an officer has been wounded. It's okay. But I try not to worry until when he's late that's when I just fall apart.
Nora Adams Hall.
Charlie 29, before the 100 silent, 120 Latham. Appears secure from the exterior.
I tell my wife certain things about my job. Things that I know won't upset her. The funnier types of things I'll tell her. Say, for instance, I had occasion to arrest a man who decided to take off all his clothes in the middle of an intersection one day. I tell her that. She laughed, had a good time about it. Tell her about the crazy people we come in contact with, what they say, how they look. But the other things that I know will upset her, I won't even mention. There's really no need to. No need to at all.
I don't want him to know that I worry. I try to maintain a certain amount of composure, especially around him. I don't want him to be concerned about how I feel about it. He enjoys his job.
The things on the job very seldom come home with me because I try to keep my home life separate than my work life. because at home I have, on occasion, crises I have to deal with. So if I leave the crises at work there, then I can come home with a relatively clear mind and take care of what has to be done here. And as far as I'm concerned, as long as I continue to do that, home life will be fine.
I don't worry about Larry's ability as a policeman, or his, just his ability to handle bad situations that may show up. I worry about that stray nut that may come along, that spur of the moment type situation that he can't protect himself in. Larry believes that most people are good people, and that's the way he goes about his job. I've asked him about that, how do you feel being out there? And he says, well, most people, the average person is just a good citizen. He said there are a bad few that make it bad, and it's the bad few that I worry about.
We sit down and we talk about how sometimes he doesn't come home and say anything to me as far as like what happens on the job and everything, because after a while I become worried about him not saying anything. And he sits and he explains it to me as it's not getting to me as far as the job is concerned. It gets to me, but I try and let it go. And by me letting it go and not bringing it home with me, it's like it just dissolves. And I always say, well, that's your job every day. I mean, it just can't dissolve or disappear like that. He says, no, but the only things, unfortunately, that stick with you are the bad things.
How easy is it to leave those kinds of things back there at Mission Station?
At first, it wasn't easy at all because it was something new to me. I was excited about it, and I talk about it all the time. But now, after being in the business 5 years, I've learned just to forget what I've done at work when I get off at 11 o'clock and come home to my wife and enjoy her being, my being, and we get into a lot of other different things.
He brings it home, but not in the sense of stories, what happened here, sitting down talking shop. He doesn't do that, but he'll bring it home like moods, like when the officer was killed. He never said a word about it, but moods, I could tell that like he was tense. But he keeps it so closed up inside of him. It's like he keeps it there so that it doesn't touch me, so that I would, start worrying or be really conscious about what's going on. So he kind of keeps it to himself, and then after a while he kind of unwinds, and then he's all right.
Sometimes I do come home frustrated, but once again, I don't let her know. Sometimes I can, maybe something at work gave me a bit of something to think about, but I don't bring it home to her and wake her up and try to discuss it with her. I just stay up a little while, play a little music, watch a little TV, forget about it.
To think about him being a cop realistically is like today he can go to work and that's it. He won't come home, and that scares me, but it's like it scares me in the back of my mind. As long as I don't bring it up to him, he's comfortable with knowing that I can deal with it. And I guess what's happening is I'm trying my best to deal with the fact that he's a cop. This is what he likes, and I'm his wife, and I'm going to be 100% behind him.
Do you worry a lot about getting shot?
No, you can't. Otherwise, you're defeating your purpose out in the streets. If you start worrying about everything that can happen to you, you're paranoid out in the street, and you really can't function in the capacity that you're supposed to function in.
A San Francisco police officer was recently shot and killed in the line of duty. Sergeant John McCauley.
You lost a friend not too long ago. How did that make you feel?
When we lost him, it was very upsetting to me. Not only upsetting, it made me mad because he was a real good person. He was the type of person who gave of himself for the job. And as a result of him giving for himself, he died. And so I was down for quite a few days after that. Quite a few. And it's just one of those types of things where you see it happen, and then you sit back and think that things like these do happen to us. And you also think that it could have been you, or it could have been me, could have been my best buddy, could have been any one of us. It's unfortunate, but we can't dwell on it. we can remember the man the way he was, as a giving person who enjoyed his job, who did his job very well. One of the better police officers this city had. And it's too bad he had to go. But when you take the job, you already know that there have been many before you who have died while doing the job. So there is always in the back of your mind that it might be you next time. But we can't dwell on those things. We still have to go out, try to do our job the best way we can, and just try to do the little things that minimize the chance of getting hurt.
Whatever you may think of the police, I think we can all agree that it's not an easy existence and often misunderstood. The job of a police officer, although not always perilous, is often thankless. I want to thank the San Francisco and Oakland police departments, the officers and their wives who let us come into their lives to make this program possible. For KTVU Community Affairs, I'm Tomas Rahman. Good evening.
The Gaynor residence.
Charlie 29, code 4, the 100 silent, 120 Latham. The premises appears secure from the exterior.
George 19 to 4, George 86.
Quarter David Martin. Goodness 61.
Bumpkin, Terraville, north to Durante.
David 31, 11, 914, front of 2141.
Hi, kids. Ed Barbar.